Now, if I want to take this a step further, I want to talk about constraints. And to show you what I mean by constraints, I'm going to create a new post record, except this one is not going to fit our typical mold. We're going to have a title of a post called poorly selected category ID. And it's going to have a post ID or a category ID of 14. I'm going to select all, and I'm just going to paste it in. So now we have a different problem where I just did a join, and my join had a category ID of 14, but then my database didn't actually know what to join it with. And this is a very common problem when you're dealing with relationships if you don't add constraints. And a constraint basically means that you're telling the database, wait a minute, I don't want you to let me put in any number into my category ID table anymore, or my category ID field anymore. I want you to force me to make sure that that record exists somewhere. And doing a foreign key constraint, or a constraint at all, is actually not that difficult in MySQL. You'll notice, however, that once you do have anomalies in your database, like the one that we have right now, if I try and alter my table, if I try and alter table post by adding a foreign key constraint on the category ID, which references the category's ID field, which is what I want to do here. Basically, I'm saying, hey, there's a relationship between category ID in my post table and the ID in the category table. If I try and do this, it's going to get really mad at me, and it's going to say, no, cannot add up or update a child row, and it's going to say that the foreign key constraint fails. So we need to solve all of these data integrity issues before we start introducing foreign key constraints. I mean, in our case right now, it's really easy, right? We just have to go and we say update post, set category ID equals null, where category ID equals 14. And then if I try and re-alter the table, everything is going to be fine. Now, if I go back and I try and take something where, let's say, the category, if the ID is 8, which in this case it is for poorly selected category ID, and if I try and set the category ID to 14 now, it's actually going to protect me. This is a protection. I mean, this is basically saying, look, I can't do a join on an ID that doesn't exist. So now if I go back to my left join, at least I'm not going to get a weird anomaly where my category ID is one thing and then the actual category table doesn't actually have that content anymore. Which leads us to another problem, and that's cascading. So when we do set up a foreign key constraint, there's another part of this, which is what do we do when something is deleted in one of the tables and the other table is dependent upon it? So like, for example, if I have two postings in my post table that are related to the politics column, then if I delete the politics category, what do? Do we delete the two political postings, or do we just set the category ID to null? And this is a really interesting problem as well, and luckily MySQL can actually fix and solve this problem too. So in my alter table post add foreign key category ID references category ID, I can actually specify what happens in the event of a deletion. So I can say on delete, and the default is no action, but I can also, for example, have it delete a record. So I can say on delete cascade. And what this will do is it'll basically cascade the deletions down to any relevant tables that are dependent upon the category. So now if I say delete from category where name equals politics, and it'll delete one row there. But now if I try and do my join here, you'll notice that it's also deleted my political postings, which is actually exactly what we want. And if I say select star from post, then they're actually gone now. So this is an example of on delete cascading, but we can also say on delete no action, which is the default behavior, I believe. So if I say on delete no action, actually, let's start back at the top here. So we've got our beautiful database, and I'm going to set this to null. Hit save. So we've pasted this all in, and then I'm going to alter my table post by adding a foreign key for category ID, which references category ID, and on delete no action. And it's saying that I can't do that for some reason. Alter table post, add foreign key, category ID, references category ID, on delete no action. And it says that the constraint fails. Let's just see why. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That looks fine. Select star from category. 1, 2. We're missing the first column, which is the category. If I try and drop the table category, it's actually going to have to be dropped first before I can drop the table post, and that's what happens. So my script failed. So now if I run it again, and I do select star from category, I'll have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Select star from post, and that looks okay. And now let's try altering our table with the foreign key constraint. Okay, good. So we can do that, and then I can add on delete no action. Hit enter. Perfect. Everything seems to be working. Now, if I decide again I want to delete from category where name equals politics, who needs them, then it's going to say, you can't do it anymore. Because if you delete politics, then it's basically going to create an inconsistency or an anomaly in your database, which is actually exactly what we want. So this is just an example of some of the ways that you can deal with constraints and how constraints can actually help you make sure that your database is responding properly. Another way of handling this is actually to set things to null. So instead of on delete no action, you could do on delete set null. And then if I try and delete the category with the name of politics, it's going to let me this time, except that if I do a select star from post again, I'm now going to get the null category IDs, which is very important. So I hope this was helpful. In the next video, we're going to start looking at one-to-many a little more in depth, and we're also going to modify our little table script to include an authors table and also to include the foreign keys right off the bat. I'm John Lebensold. Thanks for listening.